The Northern California Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Community Foundation is dedicated to empowering individuals and communities by promoting civil and human rights, fostering social and economic justice, and encouraging holistic well-being. Through a range of dynamic programs and events, we strive to unlock the promise in every person and create a more equitable and inclusive society. From our flagship events, the Martin Luther King Jr. Celebration and the King and Faith and International Colloquium Series, to the Black and Brown Comics Arts Festival, the Center for Social Impact Development and Global Engagement, and the MLK Social Justice Center and Gallery, the Foundation strives to foster a more just, inclusive, and compassionate society and world, where individuals are empowered and where all communities can thrive. Support the NorCal MLK Foundation at norcalmlkfoundation.org/donate.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Aaron Grizel.
Hey, 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 hey. All right. Wonderful documentary on the history and wonderful music there. And you heard the wonderful stylings of Tiffany Austin there. And we have a distinguished panel from KCSM, and I'm going to introduce them now, and we're going to hold a conversation with them. Give a round of applause for Dr. Robert Franklin, KCSM Station Manager. And the jazz artist, Tiffany Austin. And then you know him, and you know his dad's wonderful music, KCSM radio personality, Clifford Brown, Jr. The Latin Jazz Show's only Jesse Chuy Varela. And the Northern California Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Foundation's Voice of God and new KCSM radio personality. Give it up for Miranda Wilson. All right. Let's talk about music and the movement. Music and the movement. And I want to start by thinking about this one thought. And I want to hear from each of you on this and open it up. 1956 was a difficult time. That was 70 years ago. And we're in 2026 in a difficult time. What did music say, and what can music say, and what will music say to us today to help us? I'll start with Dr. Franklin, and then you all go at it.
Thank you for the question. I think it's very important. I had the privilege of traveling to Selma, Alabama, and covering the civil rights pilgrimage. And in that march at that time was Congressman John Lewis, who led a congressional delegation down to Selma to do the historic Bloody Sunday March, where they attempted to cross the Edmund Pettus Bridge. The thing that impacted me the most, that I think resonates today, was the music that I heard from the church in Selma, Alabama. It was gospel music, the music that really, really fueled the civil rights movement. It is powerful then and it's powerful now. It is what helped to reinvigorate people who felt they were downtrodden and without hope. And gospel music, in combination with jazz, has always been that uplifting spirit, music that talks to the soul, that is talking to our souls presently in 2026.
Miranda, you talk about this a bit. Even back during slavery, my forebears on my dad's side came from the very center of Mississippi.
Yep. Yep.
So even if they tried to escape, they couldn't go north, couldn't go south, couldn't go east or west fast enough, right? The blues, the moan, the shout, all of that back in the day. Talk to us a little bit about that, because I know that's your thing.
Well, it's always been a message in the music, you know, and I'm glad they touched upon that in the documentary. Well done. Because even those songs that were sung when they were slaves, Steal Away, Swing Down Chariot, you know, those songs that were sung, that was a message. And everyone thought on the plantations that the African Americans were singing about, oh, they sing so sweetly. They were sending a message, steal away. I ain't got long to stay here. Swing down, sweet chariot. Stop and let me ride. I got that mixed up with with George Clinton. But that's why George Clinton songs mean so much to us. They had the ability to mix those songs that we knew. But those were messages. They were, you know, and if you ever saw the film probably out, you know, of Harriet Tubman when the slaves were singing those songs, it was that message was going from plantation because the drumming had stopped. They stopped us from drumming. They couldn't play the drums anymore. So they started to sing. And when they started to sing, well, they knew, hey, that train was coming. We're not talking about no train that you buy a ticket for. We got our ticket. We're on our way up north. That's kind of how it started.
Yeah.
You were talking about 1956. My mother was probably pregnant with me during that time. But everything I read about the jazz musicians, it was a pivotal year in 1957. Various things happened. And I don't want to take over.
Clifford, jump on that. You were small. You were a little child in the untimely death of your dad. But your dad, even as a young man, was seminal in his music and his artistry. What have you been told about that era with your dad from his friends and from those who played with him in that period?
My dad's business partner, musical partner, and best friend was Max Roach. And Max Roach said that the music at that time wasn't what it always seemed, as Miranda alluded to. That there was a lot of times that there was protest in their music that some people might not even be aware of. They were coming up with a kind of music at that point in time called hard bop. And it was a little different than bebop. It had the same kind of solo artistry and integrity in the solos, but it was more melodic and it was easier to listen to, and it was able to bring about a larger audience and at the same time have these musicians doing things that were different than anything that had ever been done before. And that's what I think our music, jazz, has always been, whether it's to make you feel better and soothe you, or it's to really just inform you of what's going on, as a lot of the music that had lyrics did, or if it's just to incite you and really get you to say, because sometimes it's good to be angry, whether it's to just get you angry so that you do something and you're moved to action, that all of these musics, all of these jazzes come together to do that. And I think that's one of the big things, though, that Max taught me, was that the music was there and wasn't always just as it seems. It wasn't always, as Miranda mentioned, just a pretty song.
Yeah.
Jesse, Chuy, tell us a bit about how sort of the experience of music. You are sort of you're sort of our go-to person to understand a lot of the ranges of music with us, from our Latin jazz, from our Afro-Cuban music, and the like. Slavery existed throughout the Atlantic world, and so there's a commonality that we all have. Talk to us a bit about that commonality and the interpretation of the music that comes through your tradition.
Well, thank you for that, and I thank you for the invitation. It really is a great honor to be here this afternoon. But I think that, for me, when you bring up 1956, I was a kid that had just come over the border between El Paso and Mexico, Juarez, Mexico, where I was born. And, at that time, we were just an immigrant family that was getting started. I was 2 years old, and my father was trying to find a better life for us. So we wound up in a little town outside of El Paso known as Isleta. It was a little farming town. And I think I probably was like maybe 6 years old when we went out to, right next to our house, to a cotton field. And we started picking cotton. At the time, there was no child labor laws. There was nothing, man, So the thing is that we worked, we earned our little money, and it was something that my dad didn't want us to go through. So to make life better for us, he decided to move to California. So we wound up first in East LA, but it wound up settling in Long Beach. And, when I was there, having had that experience, we to make more money, we would go out and pick oranges, there in Orange County. So we did all that. But I was very blessed that right next door to me was a man by the name of Clayton Jolivet, who was from New Orleans. So Clayton would get out there on his days off with his door open, sitting out there drinking his beer with his record player, playing some of the greatest jazz I ever have heard. I heard Ramsey Lewis, man. I heard Louis Armstrong. I heard all that. And I would sit there with Clayton. I was a little kid, and we were all little kids, and we would sit there with Clayton, and he would play this music, which was really, really great. But, the thing about it is that what I wound up learning about was really the commonality that a lot of people had from particularly New Orleans, which was one of the richest port cities, in the Caribbean. And that combination, Dizzy Gillespie would talk about this, this unification and this intermarriage, if you will, between what was happening in Havana, Cuba, and what was happening in New Orleans, and how they would exchange. That's why Jelly Roll Morton always talked about this Spanish tinge that was so important to the creation of jazz. But the deal is that for me, having been a farm worker kid and all, when I grew up in high school, I went and saw Dolores Huerta speak. And she spoke about the importance of, the United Farm Workers Union organizing and all. And then, people got up and they sang. And you know what? One of the songs that they had, they sang a song called "We Shall Overcome." En español, nosotros venceremos. And we basically, embraced the songs of the civil rights movement into our movement as part of the United Farm Workers Union, but we put it in Spanish so that people were inspired by these songs because these were songs of struggle. And man, the power of a song, as you alluded to there, Miranda, is really such an important thing. It'll see you, man, through the adversity that you have to fight through. Yes. But, I have to say that, that music has stuck to my soul.
Yes.
Tiffany, you are the voice. Let's hear it. Tiffany, you are a voice for today and tomorrow. Tell us what is springing forth in you when it comes to the depth of this tradition that you've now immersed yourself in. Now, wait a minute now. You were an attorney?
I hold a law degree.
You hold a law degree. And wait. She's not saying it right. She's not saying it right. You hold your law degree from where?
UC Berkeley.
Okay. So I mean, So this is not, you had an opportunity go across the street there and do well.
Yes.
And you have decided to be a part of this very deep tradition. Why, how, and what spurs you on?
Well, for me, it felt like life and death because I was graduating from law school, and I was really trying to figure out how to live a life that felt meaningful, that felt soulful. And so when I really sat down and meditated on it, I realized that music was my first love. It's what I woke up thinking about and what I went to sleep dreaming about. And though law is really interesting, I like intellectual exercises. There's nothing that moves my soul more than music. And as far as like speaking to the times, this makes me really, when I think about the tradition that we call jazz, that's really, just a part of this ongoing DNA, this fabric of Black American music. This is African diasporic music. I really think about Nina Simone's quote, and she said that the artist's duty is to speak to the times. And so, in that, yes. And so in that sense, I really think about artists as being griots, like, yes, we inspire, yes, we move people to action, but we also document, right? In a time where people want to erase our histories, mischaracterize who we are, we get to speak who we are and what our experiences really are and give voice. And I think that that's really important to remind ourselves that we have a voice and that we can reaffirm who we are in the world in a way that is very unique, not only to our culture, but also to our individual selves. So that, for me, is why I do this music, because I feel like it's one of the most important things one can ever do. Anyone, all of us can go and get a law degree, right? But But to be a culture bearer is like a deep evocation.
Amen. Amen.
Yeah. Aaron, I was thinking, I was scrolling, I stay on social media way too much, but there was a quote, I was hearing Bernice King speak, and she was talking about how Dr. King, after Montgomery, he was speaking to the people, and they thought, hey, we did it, we got them people, we got them white folks, and he said, stop. We didn't win this. This is about not hating. This is not about hating white folks. It's not about winning or losing. It's about injustice. And we're here to fight against injustice. He was often put in a position to speak on the subject no matter where. And apparently in 1964, Dr. King was at the Berlin Jazz Festival.
That's what I was about to ask about.
And he spoke about jazz. He says, jazz speaks for life. The blues tell the story of life's difficulties. And if you think for a moment, you will realize that they take the hardest realities of life and put them into music, only to come out with some hope or a sense of triumph. Giving hope is what this music did. It's like you were saying, you put it in your language, and you put it in no matter, even sign language, we shall overcome. There's a verse in there I like even better. We are not afraid.
Yes.
We are not afraid. We are not afraid today. And everything that I've read or seen about the marches and hear people that spoke about it, they were young and they didn't know what they were going to encounter. They didn't know whether it was going to be a hose of water. They didn't know it was going to be dogs. They didn't know anything, but they got out there and said, we are not afraid. And when I see the signs in Minnesota, when I see the people out there speaking, they need hope. And that's what music does. Music gives you hope. It helps you to see your imagination. I was listening, this is my first Saturday at KCSM. And as I kept telling folks, I was nervous as a hoe in church. I'm not kidding. I'm not kidding. That's an old saying. I've never been a hoe in church, but that gives you some idea what was going on. And I was playing the song Moanin'. Now, I've always liked that song because it's got a little call and response. I was raised in a church house, so I kind of like that. But I started looking up the lyrics. And I said, Art Blakey was not messing around. He said, every moaning finds me moaning. I'm alone and crying the blues. I'm so tired of paying the dues. Everybody knows I'm moaning. And they'd back up, the musicians, Every evening I'm moaning because all the trouble I see. Life's a losing game to me. Everybody knows I'm moaning. You see, and that's what, the messages behind the music, we were dancing. You hear Mississippi Goddamn.
Right.
And I'm watching old videos of seeing, Nina Simone playing. She's playing that piano. How was she feeling when she wrote that song? How was she feeling when she heard about the 4 girls that were blown up in 16th Street Baptist Church? And then Medgar Evers being assassinated. She said she walked the floors back and forth for hours and hours because she was so outraged. She sat down to the piano and she wrote that song. The musicians weren't silent. They weren't silent. And as I look at some of the audiences that she was performing those songs in front of, the Mississippi Goddamn is a little, sounds a little lively little song, but you listen to the lyrics, honey.
But sometimes, when you think about the way that the reaction was from the greater society, perhaps one of the best films that I saw a couple of years ago was, basically a film that was done about Billie Holiday and Strange Fruit, and how she, by singing that song, was basically ostracized by the powers that be. J. Edgar Hoover put out a whole crew to go after her, and a woman that really was one of the greatest singers ever in jazz. And to go through this, to be ostracized in that way by this, power that, because of a song that she sang that she didn't even write it. But it spoke so much to the situation that was happening in the 30s of the lynchings and the difficulty and the hate that was being put forth to African Americans, that really it was something that when you began to look at it, they said, where are we going to be able to reach this equality? And Dr. King, spoke to that equality, to searching for that equality. And, for me, when I was in Long Beach, one of the things that I lived through, and Clifford did as well, because we've spoken about this before, was the Watts insurrection, the Watts riots, if you want to call them. And one of the things that happened as a result of those Watts riots was that the integration of the Southern California schools. So many of us were bused. Like for me, I was at Whittier Elementary. All of a sudden, I wound up across town, and going through this. And the first days, the first weeks that we were there were people protesting us being there in this school. They didn't want that to happen. So the deal is that, but it was all at, the post-assassination time of Dr. King that it made people think we need to bring about this change. And that change was brutal. And I remember bringing this up with Wilson Riles, who had been the superintendent of schools. And I told him, I said, Dr. Riles, it really was something that was very difficult. And he looked at me straight in the eye and says, but you came out for the better, didn't you?
Yeah.
I said, amen to that, man.
Amen to that, yeah.
Clifford, your experience coming up, what was the motive in your life when it came to music and the movement? You all were teenagers and going right through the middle of these turbulent times in the mid and late 60s. How did you deal with it?
Well, the music was just the music that I grew up with, that we grew up with. And I think in retrospect, yes, if you look at a Nina Simone, Mississippi Goddamn, or a Nina Simone, Why the King of Love is Dead, that she wrote literally hours after Martin Luther King had been assassinated. You know, there are songs which speak to the journey, but there are also songs which weren't really written about that journey per se, that ended up being the soundtrack to the movement. Right. You know, John Coltrane, upbeat tune, My Favorite Things, got played on R&B and pop and jazz radio. And it was one of the songs that was the soundtrack to the movement. When people were having the insurrection, 1965, South Central LA is what they call it now. Back then we called it Watts. Some people call it the Watts Riot. There were songs that were on, Burning Spear, you know, a flute solo, R&B song. So many songs. Grant Green had a lot of music. And Dr. King recognized this. Miranda read something from Dr. King that he mentions what jazz was to him. Music of hope, music of freedom. He also felt it was music of equality and democracy. He actually didn't make it to Berlin for that, but it was printed in the program. And if you look at the musicians, I never met Dr. King. No. I did have a chance to meet his widow 3 times, and twice got to ask her questions, and silly guy that I am, I asked her what was Dr. King's favorite group and his favorite song. I'm a music guy. I could ask anything in the world, but that's what I was curious about. And, you know, she said, well, he liked your father, but he liked Miles Davis more. He liked Cannonball Adderley and Donald Byrd and loved Mahalia Jackson. He named a lot of other gospel artists that he liked. She said, but I think his favorite group might have been the Staple Singers and the songs that Roebuck Staples wrote. Why am I treated so bad? He loved that song, and you know, other people have done it, from James Brown to Cannonball Adderley, but I think those kinds of songs ended up being the sound of the movement, and so that was the music that we grew up with that really was reflective of the times, and that's what was going on in the times. We were fighting in one way or another for equality, and you look at today, and it's probably more important than ever that we don't stop the fight, because a lot of folks want us to move backwards. And you know, I often ask, how could anyone be against, when you think of words like diversity, you know, different people, equality, how could anyone be against equity? You know, how could anyone? And then I heard a quote this morning, and many of you probably have heard it before. I just heard it for the first time today, though. And it says, when you've had privilege, even if you don't know that you're privileged, when you've had privilege, then sometimes equality will feel like discrimination to you. And maybe that's what's going on right now, because that's the only thing that I can come up with. But it doesn't matter how someone really feels, because that's not what it is. It's not discrimination. So without getting off too much on a tangent, just the music that we listen to each and every day, household I grew up in, jazz and R&B, and it was the music of the movement, because it was the music of the times. It
was like the Curtis Mayfields, moving on up, and
moving on
You're
up.
a Winner, and People Get Ready, all those songs. What'd you say? Oh, definitely. That was the 80s, so it was Fight the Power.
It's still going. Doctor, we're going to give 15 seconds. Give me some shout outs. What was that?
War.
Muddy Waters.
Who else?
There you go.
There you go.
That's a song title, not an artist. There you go.
Keep on keeping on.
Dancing in the streets.
That too. That's good. That's good. Dr. Franklin.
Say it loud.
Say it loud. All right. All right. Dr. Franklin, what is your vision as we close here? I want to end with you. I want to do the last question to you. We're going to end with Tiffany. The last question, what is your vision? You've done this wonderful documentary. What is your vision for KCSM going forward? How do you see it?
Well, in all of the interviews that I have undertaken in various places, I always like to say that I want our radio station, this radio station, to give voice to the voiceless. The examples that have been given here on the stage about, the turbulent times that we've lived in have shaped me and really ingrained within me the interest in telling these compelling stories, whether they be about jazz radio station that is one of the best radio stations in the world, or about the lynching of Will Brown, or through my dissertation, Riots of Red Summer, and the music that fueled those particular movements. They mentioned Nina Simone during my PhD documentary. I wanted to use her particular song, Strange Fruit. My committee said, you may not want to use that particular song, but it spoke to what I felt needed to be portrayed in my dissertation documentary. So through all of this, to this particular point right here, is giving voice to the voiceless, telling these stories about unsung individuals. And one of the things that really attracted me to this particular position at KCSM were the curators, the Browns, the Chuys, all these particular individuals, Sonny Buxton, these incredible curators who had been doing what they were doing. And I felt we should chronicle this, we should capture this, put it into some type of form so that the generation presently and the generations behind us and the generations to come could learn about this fantastic, extraordinary radio station that we have here in the Bay Area. And to capture all of that, I was so fortunate, and I think our audience will be fortunate as well, to really beg up on and ask Tiffany Austin to put into song that feeling, that power that jazz provides in the spirit of us all.
Yeah.
So in terms of bringing communities together, jazz does that. These particular gentlemen on the stage, Tiffany and ladies as well on the stage, have brought communities together, not just in the Bay, but around the world. And that's the legacy, and that's what I want for us to do today, tomorrow, and forever.
Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Robert Franklin, Tiffany Austin, Clifford Brown Jr., Jesse Chuy Varela, and our own Miranda Wilson. Let's give them a big hand. All right. I told you about this next coming thing. Tiffany is going to grace us with 2 songs to lead us out of this section. Let's give her a big hand as she gets prepared and we walk off this stage so she can do her thing.
All right, that was an incredible discussion, right? Oh my goodness. And it's so wonderful to know that we have such deep lovers of this music and people who are so deeply thoughtful and care about our community in this way. So yeah, I'm just honored to be invited to join them. We're going to do 2 songs, and the first one is an original that I wrote. But before I start talking about that, I'd like you to meet my friend Nathan Bickard. Can you give him a round of applause? And I feel a little weird because I would like to keep an eye on him and make sure he doesn't run away. So I'm going to move back a little bit so I can communicate with him. And so the song that I wrote is about the 1921 massacre of Black Wall Street, the neighborhood of Greenwood. And so what was important for me is to, just document things. I'm really interested in making sure that we remind ourselves of the history so that we don't repeat ourselves. So, yeah, let's give it a whirl. Oh, one last thing. So just like Nina Simone wrote this song that sounded really happy, but had the undercurrent, you're going to notice a little bit of a conflict, which I also think is like that tension that we hold as being in this country that says it's the best ever, but not holding to those tenets of people, all people being created equal. So there's that tension that I put in this song as well. Whatever happened to those golden dreams you promised we'd all taste one day? But they all die like unwatered amber waves of gray. You said you'd love me if I just wait my turn. Why'd you let greenwood burn? I guess the price of true freedom is something I can't ever earn. From Mississippi, Watts, and Oakland to Ferguson, we've all had to weep and cry the blues. All those whose lives are done, from legislation, news, or gun, we hold a silent space for you. Whatever happened to that freedom song you sang when you sailed for our shores? Don't give 3/5 of your love and honor what you vowed before. Watts and Oakland to Ferguson, we've all had to weep and cry the blues. All those whose lives are done, from legislation, noose, or gun, we hold a silent space for you. Whatever happened to that freedom song you sang when you sailed for our shores? Don't give 3/5 of your love, honor what you vowed before. Don't give 3/5 of your love and honor what you vowed before. Thank you. The next song is a traditional song, and I always like to, when I share a song, I like to make sure that we know that all of this music has the same DNA. If you pull a gospel song, a R&B song, a hip-hop song, some jazz, some blues, that's all got the same DNA. That is African diasporic music. And so we're going to do this song called Keep Your Eyes on the... Yes.
and Silas bound in jail. Had no money for to go there bail. Keep your eyes on that prize and hold on. Paul and Silas began to shout. Well, doors all open and they all walked out. Keep your eyes on that prize. Hold on. You know you gotta hold on. Hold on, yeah. Keep your eyes on that prize and hold on. Listen here. Only chains that we gonna stand are the chains of hand in hand. We'll keep your eyes on that prize. Hold on. Well, you know we gotta hold on. Paul and Silas bound in jail. Had no money for to go there. Keep your eyes on that prize. Hold on. You know you gotta hold on. Go on. Hold on. Keep your eyes on that prize. Hold on. You know you gotta hold on. Holding people on them ships, they held on. Oh, so far from home, they held on. My grandmama, she held on. Granddaddy, yeah, he held on. We gotta hold on.
Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together for Ms. Tiffany Austin. The Northern California Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Community Foundation is dedicated to promoting justice, health, education, and service. Please consider making a donation at norcalmlkfoundation.org. Every donation makes a difference.